Okay, I'm back with another in a series of competition politics versus democracy. And I started it with the election of the president for a reason. And that reason was to show why they want competition politics. And that reason is so that they can control policy. That's the goal of competition politics. Because if you can control how policy is made, then you control policy. And that is the way that they are usurping the power of our government from the states, who collectively are empowered to make policy based on why they declared their independence from the state of Great Britain. And what we have to understand about that is the beef was that they were being taxed and they were being made to be subordinate to a king and state that was thousands of miles away, and each of them wanted the right to make those decisions for themselves, especially for commerce. Because war, peace, and alliances is a bigger issue. But when you're talking about commerce, then who makes the money on commerce? Okay, and that's where they were. They wanted the right to establish commerce, and in their own favor, instead of having to send money to Britain for that commerce that Britain wanted. So when you look at the presidential debate, what are they debating? They're debating policies. Whose policies? Well, each one of these people who wants to be president has their own agenda and their own ways of supposedly determining policy, which basically goes straight into the economic side because they're talking about taxes, they're talking about commerce. So they're biting right into what the states as the union, because they formed the union so that they can act together with these policies. They didn't form the union to make one big country for the people, or to protect the people's rights or anything like that. No, they formed the union so that they could act together as the union. They could make commerce together and make those decisions. And they needed a way to achieve those decisions in a methodological way that was agreeable to everybody involved. All the states that are involved, because the states already had their own state governments. that they didn't need to be in a union in order to do those things, make those decisions on their own. But together, they have more power to negotiate those things than they would independently. So how to make those decisions of commerce and then how to pay for the government, to operate the government, was what they were most concerned about. And today, all that is gone. And what's worse is the government has no way to police itself or enforce anything that's in the Constitution. They have made it to where it's impossible to enforce any aspect of the Constitution. Right now, they aren't using the Constitution for anything except for a coffee table coaster. And we wonder why our government is in chaos. Well, it's in chaos because even when they impeached Trump, he was never removed from office. And if you read the Constitution and you go to Article 2, Section 4, the Constitution of the United States, it says the president, vice president, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for. And that means treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. So they're removed from office on impeachment for. It creates an absence, albeit temporary, until the results of the trial in the Senate, where if they are and conviction of, which is in the Senate, that creates a vacancy. So if they're acquitted in the Senate because they don't have the numbers to, they don't have 3/4 of the states, 2/3 of the states voting to remove permanently, or to convict is a better word, because removal is the penalty, conviction is the action. Then they return to their duties as the president. What about the trial in the Senate? Well, they're removed immediately upon impeachment, which is a indictment, and they have to face a custody hearing to determine the manner of custody during, while awaiting the trial and during the trial. And if it's a bad enough infraction, like treason, then they're held just like in a regular trial without bond. They don't have to give the president personal recognizance while he's awaiting the trial in the Senate. They can just impeach him and put him and hold him in the Senate if they feel like it. And then after they convict him in the Senate, they don't have to let him go then either. They can remand him immediately over to the civil court system, criminal court system, where he would face criminal prosecution and criminal penalties. So they never have to let him go. So why didn't they do that? Trump didn't even show up in the Senate for the trial in the Senate. Who told him that he didn't have to show up? So this is the problem we have. We don't have anyone who understands how to operate the government and enforce the principles that are already established in the Constitution. Why? Because it goes counter to competition politics, to their control. If they were to do things the way it's supposed to be done in the Constitution, they could not consolidate power and they couldn't control the government the way they are today. Because the only control in our government is to reach a majority consensus of all the states as the Union. Period. That's the only control in our government, is that reaching a majority consensus. This isn't a majority based on assembly where these parties can compete for seats. And then they get to form the government and govern. No. All that is already specified. The number of representatives, the suffrage of each state to participate in the legislative process in Congress, and the majority consensus depending on what kind of matter you are considering. There is no way to change that dynamic of distribution of representation and suffrage, or the legislative processes for how to reach that majority consensus. So it's not a majority to control by composition based on seats that you won. It's a majority consensus of the states as the Union. And in a Republican form of government, you need a majority consensus of all the people, because the representatives in the House are an exact representation of all the people in the country. Exact. It's supposed to be. The people in their collective capacity. And then a majority consensus of all the states. And that's in the Senate, where the states have the majority consensus. And yes, the states have the power of concurrence over that system, where if the states collectively don't want to enact whatever the House has passed, tough. They send it back to the House and tell them what would be acceptable to the states, to all the states, because the 9 largest states today control the majority consensus in the House through their proportional majority, through their proportional representation in the House, representation and suffrage. So we got to get back to that dynamic that actually has controls and protections, which means that we have to assemble government properly for it to work properly. We have divided dysfunctional government, partisan, because we assemble divided, partisan, dysfunctional government. That's why it doesn't work. And we'll start this series and talk some more about how to actually assemble it correctly. Thanks.